That's the price you pay for going on telly. Once someone's on telly, you have the right to know who they're sleeping with, or what they get up to in bed, or what's on their phone, or what their secret fears are, or what hand they wipe their arse with, or what it would look like if you kicked them over and pulled their pants down and stared right up their arsehole, because it's in the public interest.
If you're wondering what an anonymous tabloid hack might make of the Super Injunctions saga, you're in luck, because here's anonymous tabloid hack Fleet Street Fox with her personal view.
It was very frustrating as a journalist to know that everyone on Twitter was talking about the things that we weren't allowed to report. I thought that quite a few of them probably were in the public interest, but there's no way I could have mentioned it to anybody. I'd have lost my job, I could have lost my home. Whereas the average man in the street can happily repeat the gossip he's heard in the pub. 75,000 odd people, I think it was, broke Giggs' injunction on Twitter, and not one of them had any court action taken against them. The media couldn't cover it, that was the problem. That's why it was a farce. We couldn't even report the fact that people were breaching an injunction. It was a ridiculous situation. All the injunctions have been brought under Article 8 of the Human Rights Act, which says that everybody has a right to respect for privacy and a family life. It doesn't say that you have a right to a secret life, and the two are very, very different. Marriage is a public thing and a public record, and if, say, you're making money out of your marriage or out of being in a happy relationship or misleading the public in some way, perhaps you ought to be honest about the fact that it's not always working. If you don't respect your privacy and your family life, for example, by repeatedly sleeping with hookers, then I'm not going to respect you either.
Hooray! It's May, and after battling to victory in a thrilling edition of WWE Extreme Rules Wrestling, beefy John Cena makes a shock announcement.
We have caught and compromised to a permanent end Osama bin Laden.
Once the crowd had slowly unlocked the meaning of those words, an inspiring scene transpired as Hunky John prowled the cheering arena, everyone bathed in the reflected glory of a criminal thousands of miles away being shot in the head by soldiers they didn't know, in a manner that is in no way disturbing or homoerotic. Anyway, let's not judge. That may look like an outpouring of joy, but it's actually just relief. Fox News anchor Geraldo Rivera was so relieved when he heard the news, he livened up his broadcast by spontaneously spouting lyrics.
Bin Laden is dead. Bin Laden is dead.
Shot once in the chest and then in the head.
Multiple sources. Osama bin Laden is dead. Happy days.
Yay!
This is the greatest night of my career. The bum is dead.
And they shot 4 other people too. One of them was a woman. Hooray!
And I am so blessed, I'm so privileged to be at this desk at this moment.
Yay! Have a pint of blood on me. Cheers! Still, it's just relief he's expressing, not joy. Jubilant scenes then spread across all the news networks as crowds gathered in a not at all ghoulish way to celebrate the shooting to death of the bearded murderer. See, more relief, not joy. Within months, Osama's takedown had been turned into a thrilling docudrama full of talking head interviews with the people responsible. It's nice to know that in battling a monster, the Americans didn't become monsters themselves, which is so often the case. A monster would revel in death, but they were simply expressing relief, not joy.
One image that comes out of this is the fact that bin Laden's final sight on this earth was the muzzle of a U.S. Navy SEAL. For those of us who've been looking for bin Laden for a long time, to know that that was the last thing that he saw is actually a moment of joy.
Ed Miliband, he's brilliant, right? He's like a boy who's won a competition to lead a party, but he always looks a bit worried, like he thinks someone's going to throw his satchel on the roof. But then, in June, right, Ed Miliband broke. He was being interviewed on the news about strikes, and he's standing there with his eyes, right? And they ask him what he thinks about the strikes, and he says,
"These strikes are wrong at a time when negotiations are still going on."
And then they ask him another question, and he says,
"At a time when negotiations are still going on, I do believe these strikes are wrong."
And then he says it again, right?
"What I say is that the strikes are wrong when negotiations are still going on."
And then he keeps saying it.
"These strikes are wrong because negotiations are still going on."
And you're thinking, I'm going mental, stop him saying it. But he won't stop saying it. It's like you're stuck in a box with him saying,
"And it's wrong at a time when negotiations are still going on."
And then, after a while, they give up. And then someone must have reset his Wi-Fi because he was all right the next day. So then he was back to walking around looking sexy. Because he is really sexy. He's a powerhouse. But he goes at it like a jackhammer. Cool.
Throughout the year, we were kept entertained by thousands of brilliant TV commercials, none of which we'll look at now. We start with a terrifying horror film set in a world in which the human brain no longer exists.
Oh, so smooth, love and soft.
Is it just me, or is this the sort of thing the losing team make in The Apprentice during advert week?
New Super Mix.
You know, the one crumb of comfort it's possible to draw from this commercial is the certain knowledge that everyone involved in making it, or merely watching it, will one day die.
Bag full of fun.
Teeth! And in a sinister development for dental care, a bastard bothers shoppers with a probe.
Excuse me, is your toothpaste working?
Yeah, of course.
Time for a quick check. Have a look.
Bacteria. But I brushed this morning.
Don't lie, you bitch. The probe knows everything you've done. Weirdly, the next day she obeyed the regime's orders.
See.
Wow, where's all that bacteria? I'm impressed.
Good, now pull your pants down for stage 2 of the inspection. Coffee! And these absurd ads try to seduce women by shoving fantasy men before them, like man carrots.
How'd you like your coffee? How about smooth, sensual, and with these?
Not really, mauve doesn't do anything for my legs.
And you know what? I've been thinking. I'm going to move my stuff out of the bedroom so there's more room for your enormous handbags.
Don't talk about my testicles like that.
How do you like your coffee?
Black?
How about smooth, aromatic, and with a long conversation?
No, just black.
How do you like your coffee?
Tossed in your f***ing face?
How about smooth, aromatic? And in Paris?
No, I prefer it in mugs. As July arrived, the phone hacking saga suddenly became a horror story. Throughout the year, the story had been gaining momentum. Trouble is, no one really cared if the tabloids were hacking the phones of celebrities. They're not even real people. They're probably a form of animated pate. Even if they'd got stories by waterboarding soap stars, no one would mind.
Are you pregnant? Yes or no? Are you pregnant? Are you up the duff? Yeah. Have you got a bun in the oven? Yeah.
But then on July the 4th, the story broke, which changed everything.
More revelations in the news of the world hacking scandal. It's accused of intercepting Millie Dowler's phone.
Never again could the paper be seen as a cheerfully vile bit of crinkly bog roll that was cruel to celebs. Now it was cruel to real people. The incredible thing is, the story got worse. The shocking, grim headlines kept coming. It was as if the paper was locked in a deadly game of one-downsmanship with itself. It was actually quicker to list victims of tragedy who weren't involved. I'm surprised the cast of the Poseidon Adventure weren't on the list. Later in the year, The Guardian admitted the screws probably hadn't deleted Millie's voicemails, whoopsie-daisy, but they had accessed them, and it's fair to say people weren't impressed. Being a tabloid reporter has never been seen as the most noble of professions, of course, but suddenly it was a career on a par with necrophiliac porn wrangler, and it didn't help that virtually the only person stepping up to defend the Red Tops was former screws hack and walking ethical vacuum in a shabby jacket, Paul McMullen.
I've always said that I've just tried to write articles in a truthful way, and, you know, what better source of getting the truth is to listen to someone's messages. Now, that might sound frivolous, but
it's also immoral.
I have to say, I think you're a walking PR disaster for the tabloids, because you don't come across in a sympathetic way. You come across as a sort of risible individual.
God, that is amazing of Steve Coogan. To be able to play both Alan Partridge and Paul McMullen in the same room at the same time.
because we'll no longer be able to expose silly celebrities for taking coke and cheating on their wives, which, to be honest, I always found a bit of fun. And you know,
everyone had a go at him. Liverpudlians.
You have to ask me who I was before. So you start saying, "Oh, I was exposing cook." He didn't even know who I was or what I'd done.
Former colleagues.
And those people who've been thrown out of work because of things like you and previous people like you have done, and besmirched the name of a good paper.
Hugh Grant.
Your only motive was profit. You're not journalists, you have no interest in journalism, it's just money, money, money. No, you should try real journalism, because you're not an idiot, Paul. You could probably do it.
He had to eat more shit than David Walliams swimming up the Thames. It was a profoundly depressing sight. You could watch him getting shabbier and shabbier as time wore on, limping from studio to studio like he was just trying to keep warm till viewers began texting in, desperately trying to vote him off.
although I moved up, so my phone's beeping, so I'll just turn that off.
Oh, he's still there. I mean, I'd leave him a voicemail, but I don't know if he'd listen to it. Of course, it's all very well sniggering at cartoon tabloid hacks, but what about the editors who employed them? Imagine being a tabloid editor. Must be like working down a shit mine. Imagine going to work every day knowing you're actively making the world worse. Oh, what did you do today, darling? Oh, not much. I ran a story about a Muslim council banning the word chalk because it sounds a bit like pork. Oh, really? Oh, is that true? Nah. Attention quickly focused on the News of the World editors who either did or didn't know what was going on there. Andy Coulson had already claimed total ignorance and resigned twice. Now pressure was mounting on former Wonder Stuff frontman and News International CEO Rebecca Brooks, who'd been instrumental in keeping the News of the Screws going, spending years standing in the newsroom expertly stopping the monitors wobbling. Meanwhile, an unimpressed public was online organising boycotts, trying to bring down the Empire with their keyboards. And at the end of the week, the Death Star exploded. Cue excitable headlines from around the globe.
Sunday's issue of the News of the World will be the last edition of the paper.
This is massive news. I don't think anyone in their wildest dreams could have predicted that it would end like this.
We do know tonight that after 168 years, the world is ending.
I went and bought the final News of the World. It was an odd atmosphere in the newsagents. No one would look anyone else in the eye. It was a bit like we'd stumbled across the corpse of a bear in the woods and we were silently queuing up to have sex with it. You know how that feels. The thing itself, it's a curious artefact. It had a strangely muted final front page, as you can see here, thank you and goodbye. Normally when a despised monster is killed, it just lets out a howl like, oh, that should have been really what was on the front page. And the thing itself is the strangest edition of the News of the World ever. First of all, they've got this final editorial saying goodbye. That must have been a tricky thing to write because they had to concentrate on the paper's good points. It must have been a bit like writing the eulogy at Fred West's funeral. I mean, what are you going to say? He was good with his hands, he was virile. There was the usual sort of mix of, you know, here's the good things we did. Look, here's a bum we showed you. And these little farewell messages from readers scattered around like little tragic croutons. Britain will never be the same again, says Les from Manchester. Yes, it will. And then in the middle, they've got this special souvenir pullout. Souvenir pullout of all their greatest front pages. Where is it? Yeah, Kerry Katona doing coke. Proud of that. Look, someone hid a camera in Kerry Katona's bathroom. I don't know, if I hid a camera in a woman's bathroom, I'd expect to go to prison. Luckily, I hide them so well, no one's going to find them. Jacko's deathbed. Now that's tasteful, isn't it? This is the sensational first picture of the bed where Michael Jackson took his last breath. That's nice, isn't it? And you look at this, you look at all of this, all these sort of gaudy front pages, and you just go, yeah, I'm glad it died. But if News International hoped deleting the Screws from history would help stem the crisis, they were wrong. Before long, Brooks had to resign, seen here leaving the building disguised as an unhappy Charles II. But attention wasn't just on Brooks, but also her boss, ultra-powerful media tycoon Rupert Murdoch, seen here in the least convincing Match.com poster campaign ever. For years, it was as though Rupert Murdoch represented God, and all our public figures were medieval villagers terrified of speaking ill of him. You must never anger God, for God can hear everything you say, especially if you say it in a voicemail. God has the power to destroy you, for he controls the sun, and soon he will control the entire sky, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. And then suddenly, in the wake of the phone hacking revelations, it was as though a jamming signal had been switched off, and suddenly everyone could talk openly about him for the first time ever. This media oligarch was losing his touch, and soon he had to appear before the Select Committee alongside his mechanical sidekick, JamesBot 2.0. In accordance with regulations made in Chelsea's, Oliver Proudlock will be playing Rupert Murdoch, while Jamie Lang dons the mantle of his robot offspring, James. Louise Mensch, however, is performed by Cheska Hull. The Select Committee was like a Bush Tucker trial for Murdoch. The ordeal began with him swallowing his own dignity.
Before you get to that, I would just like to say one sentence. This is the most humble day of my life.
And for seconds, a slice of unexpected foam
The
pie.
other settlement did not. Oh no!
So what exactly is a Rupert Murdoch? Here's a short film from documentary maker Adam Curtis explaining what he thinks.
This is the story of how Rupert Murdoch took over the old newspapers of Fleet Street and used them to wage a cultural revolution against the snobbish elites that dominated Britain. But there was a weird logic to Murdoch's revolution that would lead him to intrude ever more deeply into people's private lives and would eventually bring his empire to the brink of destruction.
And it talks on the phone. The world's top talking phone.
Murdoch's populist revolution failed to change Britain's power structure. Yet his failure would open the way for the rise of a new elite who are far more invasive into all our private lives than Murdoch's papers ever were.
Well, we'll send one of our best parrot photographers, Patty. How's that?